evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome here as the Flatout Racing Network presents to you the third playoff race of Season 58 of the Roller Thunder Gaming Talladega Challenge Series. Last week, after the events of Burnt Screwdrivers Raceway, we have narrowed down the playoff grid from 13 to 8. And those Elite 8 will now prepare for 2 races to determine the final 4 in the 2 race finales. I'm Seth Cole alongside Jessica Shelton. And Jess, we talked about this before we even came on the air. 8 drivers in what's going to be a 36 truck field. There's a lot of points to be gained, but a lot of points to be lost in preparation for next week's elimination race.
Yeah, you and I were doing some conversation talking a moment ago prior to the broadcast. You mentioned it earlier that the 6-1 will slip tonight, and they're going to find themselves in a big hole, and that big hole is going to spark a little bit of desperation. Like, do we have to win? Do we got to get top 5 if we're outside of top 20 finishing tonight? And in that case, if that happens, Seth, we know that aggression kicks in, and we've seen a lot of drivers do weird things just to try to make things happen, and sometimes fortunate, sometimes unfortunate, and the unfortunate part, it can cost other drivers as well.
Indeed. I mean, a lot of times in super speedway racing, as we've talked about all season long, whether it be during the regular season or during the playoffs, sometimes your fate on where you're going to be in that championship picture by the time we end up getting to the final 2 races of the season is in the hands, more often than not, of the other drivers around you. Now, one thing that we do know for certain, 2 drivers are going to point their way into the Final 4. It's unlikely, but it's possible we could have 2 of our playoff contenders win here tonight at Talladega, next week in the final race of the round of 8 at BSR. Do you tonight gun for the win? Do you try and get that automatic lock-in into the Final 4, or are you out there just looking for consistency? Because one way or another, your goal is going to have to be to finish up as far to the front as possible. If you don't have that automatic lock-in, you want to have a nice cushion between yourself and that 4th and the standings cut line.
If you're 8 all the way up to probably 6, maybe even right there at the mark of 5th, 4th area, you're wanting to push it. You're wanting to get up there to try to win and get a top 5 at least. If you're pretty good, like if you're, let's say for example, if you are Josh Metallic or Keith Hughes right now, up near the front at this point, okay, maybe, just maybe, you can just relax and ride, get a top 12, top 15 if you're lucky, and just point your way in and just barely fall back and hope and pray that next week goes really good in your way a little bit. But right now, I honestly think if you can get up there now and get it taken care of and out of the way, you can ride and relax a little bit next week.
You're looking at the playoff points coming into this race, and I just heard moments ago, Jess, from the series admin, Josh Metallic, Keith Hughes is not in the field here tonight, and so therefore, it's very likely we're going to be talking about the number 82 in a must-win situation next week. So a tough break there, apparently not certain why Keith Hughes was unable to make tonight, but that is going to be a huge blow for one of the 8 playoff drivers. We've got 2 of them starting up here on the front row, Grant Wesley and Joe DeSpirito, former Tally Challenge champions in their own right. They ended up getting the good draw here in the random qualifying. They're going to make up row 1. Wiley Coe looks like he's dropping to the back, but he was going to be sharing row 2 with Tim Knopfsker. Doug Hulick alongside of playoff contender Bobby Farrell. They'd be row 3. Donnie Garrett and Jeremy Jeffries in row 4. Jeffries just eliminated from the playoffs last week. Craig Hagley and John Godfrey make up the top 10. In 11th spot would be Mike Rogers. He shares row 6 with Tom Dixon. Row 7 finds Keith Bynum and playoff driver Bob Seminara. Ken Roberts and Dante Rickey, they're back in row 8. Row 9 with Mark Paglia and Terry Bombard. Playoff driver Rodney Sullins completes the top 20 with Tate Dorsey. Jim Black, he's making his first start of the season. He's alongside Dave Cannon in row 11. Greg Palmer and JT Mayhew, they're in row 12. Row 13 is going to find Nathan Balser and Chuck McClure. Row 14, Dave Melson and playoff driver Josh Metallic way deep in the field there in 28th position. And completing the top 30, Bob Dixon and Bernie Mobbs. Richard Martin, he's back there with Brian Schilling. They're going to make up row, I believe that is row 16. Yes, it is. Row 17 going to be Glenn Harris and Jeff Crivello. And then Brian Ronson and Cy Jones will complete the 36 truck field here tonight. couple of drivers that have been up there near the top of the point standings, not only during the playoffs, but the latter half of the regular season. Metallic and Schilling going to have to make some quick work and cut through a bit of traffic here tonight.
Yeah, it's going to be slow, methodical patience the whole race for those two drivers to get up to the field, because when this green flag flies, we're going to probably see them start moving 3 wide in the first few laps like we always seem to do.
Mentioned Jim Black making his first start of the season. Keith Bynum making the first start, I believe, of his Tally Challenge career. And Brian Ronson making the second start of his career. We saw him make his debut last week at BSR as we are underway. Playoff race number 3 under the green here at Talladega. Grant Wesley's Toyota Tundra going to lead him into turn 1.
Look at that. Chuck McClure already making it 3 wide back here and off of turn 2 right now, Seth. They're really desperate, ready to go, aren't they?
Yeah, Chuck McClure still. This is the...
Well, now he's back down to the middle line, but they're trying to get around this 86 of Jim Black here.
Yeah, and as far as Chuck McClure, still winless this season. Didn't have a win to lock himself into the playoffs. Had a lot of hard luck during the regular season. Wasn't able to point his way in. This is the 11th race on the year, and he still has a goose egg in the win column. Been very aggressive during the course of these playoffs. Been in the conversation up at the front in the latter stages of this race, but still, that checkered flag has been eluding him as Grant Wesley going to lead the first lap. Got Tim Nofsker right there with him.
You notice back here, right here coming off of turn 2, Josh Metallic, Brian Schilling, and Chuck McClure already making that 3rd lane work.
Are we surprised? It always seems to be those 3, right? They always seem to find each other, and they always seem to like to go up to that 3rd lane. But hey, you know, everybody running ahead of them, single file at the front, double wide, about 5th place on back. You're not going to go to the front if you just ride in that middle or outside line. Make something happen on the 3rd lane where nobody is. You can see they've gathered quite a number of friends up there as well.
But you notice what seems to be a tendency here at this track and the way the style is. With all the lanes, that middle line, we always talk about everyone wanting to hoard the middle. We all want the middle. We got to have the middle. That's where everything's at, right? And we always see that middle line prevail. When they start getting to the point of 3 wide, that inside line, it starts prevailing a little bit, but this high side always gets the advantage for a few laps, and then that bottom kicks in, and then for some reason that middle line takes right back over. So if you're on that high side, you want to make as many spots up quickly before that high side starts to fade and stall out. It seems like it's somewhat pretty good. I mean, that bottom right now seems to be broken up pretty well from Terry Bombard on back.
Got Craig Hagley leading the 3rd line there with Mark Paglia. That is Keith Bynum in the 63 with Dante Ricci on the inside line. They now move up and leave Terry Bombard by his lonesome on that inside line. Terry coming off the podium finish last week, his first top 5 on the season. Was great to see that. Looking to follow that up with another good run here today. Saw Chuck McClure cut 3 lanes from top all the way down to the inside line there, trying to make a 3 wide move on Greg Palmer. Now, one thing that we do have to talk about real quickly, you see the 38 of Rodney Sullins, based off of the finishing results from the first round. Drivers got bonus points, recalculations, and so with the calculations of the bonus points, Rodney Sullins, 8th of the 8 playoff drivers moving on to this round. But racing a little sore here tonight is Rodney Sullins. Rodney ended up taking a tumble off of a ladder, found out this afternoon. He's pretty banged up, fell a couple of rungs from a ladder onto a concrete floor, but out here soldiering on, trying to get whatever points he possibly can heading into next week. We've had this during the course of the season, Jess. We had the concussion issue with Jason Scheck. Greg Palmer ended up taking a tumble off a ladder at one point. We keep seeing these drivers. They have all these things happen in their personal lives. They're racing in pain, but they're still out here racing nonetheless.
But sooner or later, depending on how hard you're racing, and depending on what type of setup you got, if you have a steering wheel with force feedback, and you get that force feedback cranked up there, that's going to really aggravate the injury if it's got anything to do with your arms and your hand, your wrists, etc.
Just thinking about it.
But with them being out here, that's saying that at least they're giving it an effort to go and try. I mean, you also mentioned to me earlier that you know, if things didn't work out for Rodney, he'd be willing to come up here in the booth with us, which, you know, would always be a welcome to at any point, at any time if he ever wanted to. But, you know, still trying to show up one way or another for support of the series.
Grant continues to show the way. We've had a couple of times here this season where we're not quite able to distinguish the difference between the 711 of John Godfrey and the 712 of Bob Seminara. I think Godfrey heard us. I think he noticed that we had that issue. New colors on the 711 this week. He's got the NASCAR Hall of Fame sponsorship on his Chevrolet Camaro right ahead of that 712 of Bob Seminara. So easier this week for us to be able to pick out who's who.
Oh, I haven't even seen that at all. Let's see, where is he running at? Okay, I'm with someone. By the way, remember before we get to yeah, okay, I see Godfrey right in front of Seminary now. That's a nice little silver black machine, isn't it, Seth?
I wondered if it was maybe in relation to a specific Hall of Famer, maybe from this year or something. Nope, just the general NASCAR Hall of Fame sponsorship on the car.
But getting back with Seminary real quick, Seminary is one of those other drivers who've had not the best season either. I mean, he's still winless as well, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, well, in terms of Bob Seminara, it was funny. We were talking about this when we saw the starting grid. Bob Seminara, congratulations to him. He got his best qualifying effort here tonight. 15th. That bested his best one prior to tonight, 16th place. So he's yet to qualify up inside the top 10 through the random qualifying order.
Looking back here, Tom Dixon, Cy Jones just holding on to the back of the draft, but Tom Dixon is just like, there's like a couple car lengths right here. It's like, it seems like whenever you're back here in the back, and what a lot of people don't know this stuff, and they don't understand. When you're the last car on any line, whether you're even in the middle of the pack, and you got a crap ton of people behind you, and they're all in the other lane, for some reason, some way, somehow, there's nothing there. And you start falling back, and you pray that someone will get right behind you. And I think that's what we're seeing with Tom Dixon. And that's a bad feeling.
It really is. And you know, there's some drivers, they try and finagle ways being the last car in a draft to try and be able to close up. Myself, I'll enter high, drive it down low, and then try and ride it up to the middle. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But to your point, when you're in a big pack like this and you're that last car in the draft and you don't have somebody to push, you are scratching, you are clawing, you may even be praying for a caution to get your guys all bunched back up again, because you know that you're very much in danger of losing the draft. And it looks like that might have already been the case for driver 45. He just went from about 1-2 car lengths back to now 6 or 7 car lengths back. Just shows the prevalence of the inability to suck up to the tail end of the field when you're that last car in line.
I'm watching his telemetry here. He's going about 198, 199 on the backers by himself. These guys up here are going about 200, 201, 202. So that is a very, very lonely feeling when you notice that these guys are starting to pull away. And they're running side by side too, which you would expect yourself to be able to reel them back in.
Side by side and 3-wide there in the middle ladder area of the pack. Bernie Mobbs looked like his number 31 was in the middle of a 3-wide situation through the triable. They have now settled it out to double wide. You're looking at the first side-by-side battle. Rodney Sullins, Greg Palmer hooked up there out of turn 4. They've now gathered Craig Hagley and Ken Roberts along with them, trying to get by Mark Pagley, who right now is holding down the 10th position. Kind of have different lines formed here, but it almost kind of looks like Tetris, right? You got one line in the middle, one line on the top, then a space, then another line in the middle.
Okay. Matt Watkins is not here.
I kind of felt that you were going to make the reference there when I mentioned Tetris.
Yeah, you knew that was coming. One way or the other, you know it was coming.
Shout out to Matt Watkins.
I do want to point out, it's good to see Dante Ricky back behind the wheel. I mean,
second start this season for him.
I mean, with him, he's got that real life job of backup, and I don't know if it's I can't remember if it's like a local news or if it's a college thing. I can't remember specifically with being a meteorologist.
I believe it's local news. I'm trying to remember the station.
But there's plenty of links in the Facebook group, I believe, to it. For live, updates and all like that to watch Dante do his best predictions. But but anyway, with Dante being here, Seth, you know how Dante is. He'll start in the back and just methodically work his way up, and he always seems to find a way to get up there for some way somehow. But the last time we saw him out here, luck wasn't really doing too well for him. I mean, do you think it's just him not? Do you think it's just the points and he's just trying to race and not even worry about where he's starting at, where he's at, etc.? Or do you think it's just the luck of the draw at this point with him? Because I mean, it's weird.
Yeah, I mean, the one start we saw him make previously this season, he got caught up in a big wreck in the trial, I believe it was. I think for him, he's just glad to be out here racing with all the guys and whatnot. I mean, I'm not sure if he's necessarily got to win this race at the forefront of his mind. He's just out here drafting, trying different lines, trying different things. If he's up there at the end, then obviously with the checkered flag on the line, he's going to go for it. But I think for right now, he's just out there enjoying himself. And I did actually, I didn't find the news team that he's with, but you actually can check out some clips of Dante's weather predictions and whatnot over on his YouTube channel, Dante Ricky WX. So yeah, head on over there. Shout out to his YouTube channel.
Three-wide battle right here where Dante is right now with Doug Hewlick. It seems like they were side-by-side just splitting Hewlick, and now they're coming back into the side-by-side running that middle line again, Seth. 14 coming to 15 laps completed. You know these drivers are thinking about the next few laps about going into pit road and whatnot,
Yep.
and we've seen that pit road could be the one that's a huge factor that plays into this with the wrecks and a little bit of checking up and whatnot, losing positions, etc. And the problem with the wrecks is that if you wreck coming on pit road, caution ain't going to come out because it's not on the racing server. So how critical is it at this point in time to nail that first pit stop?
I think it's going to be very critical because we've seen in the past, I was going to mention the fact that since we've gone this long, this is the first time in several weeks that we haven't had an early yellow flag in the first 5-10 laps. Usually the green flag pit stops and all the strategy takes place later on in the race. Based on previous races, when we end up having the long green flag run at the beginning, we run the possibility of having the entire race go green. So to your point, you make a mistake on that first pit stop, don't have a caution come out to save you, odds might be in favor of you not getting a caution the entire race to be able to remedy the mistake that you made in the early going.
And if that's the case, it goes back to what you mentioned prior to this race, before we started the broadcast. Top 20s, if you finish outside that top 20, it's going to be critical next week that you get a top 5 or win the race pretty much in order to advance your way through into the next round.
Yeah, with only 8 drivers, 7 here tonight with the absence of Keith Hughes in a 36-car field, that is a lot of points that are up for grabs, and they can either be gained or be lost. And yeah, we know Keith Hughes is going to be in a must-win situation. And yeah, I think if you finish this race outside of the top 20 with how close the points were between the 8 playoff drivers, I believe it was 16 points from first back to 8th. I mean, you're going to find yourself, gosh, I don't know, maybe 25 points, 30
and then
points behind the cut line.
Then the desperation kicks in the next race where you really got to be aggressive and attack. And we got some pit stops happening. There goes Bob Dixon peeling down like he usually does. So you know that the next couple laps are going to be pit stops galore, Seth. And I did want to bring this up. We were talking about Dante, and I thought about it for a moment. Dante is a pretty competitive guy. He runs up near the front. He continues to win from time to time. With him enjoying himself, Jim Black out here enjoying himself, how much more careful are these playoff drivers going to be with these non-playoff drivers around them?
That's the big thing, right? Like, we've seen a lot of drivers kind of make their debuts here in the last couple of weeks when the playoffs began. Craig Hagley, he made his debut about 2 or 3 weeks ago. You've got Brian Ronson, as I think the leaders are coming in. Yes, they are. Brian Ronson
Whoa, Cy
making his
Jones
second start.
way down there. He hits the inside barrier.
No
He just hit,
caution.
he
Oh,
just hit
someone's
the
in the
inside wall
grass.
a little bit.
Uh-oh. Wiley Coat. Oh, no!
Oh, flip.
Right across the nose of Nate Balser and Richard Martin. Martin was able to still get into his stall, and it looks like Balser, his stall's a little bit further down. They're both going to be able to get to their pit stalls, but Coat completely missed pit road, went into the grass, and it snapped him back across in front of drivers. And you mentioned the 7 of Cy Jones locking up the brakes and hitting the inside wall, but all down below the racing surface.
Yeah, Cy came in, he was kind of low, and then all of a sudden it looked like that truck started turning a little bit more to the left, like it was a little bit of oversteer, and he just got the inside wall. I don't know how good it was on the side of the
whoa. Someone just disappeared with this group coming to pit road, and there's going to be some carnage here. Someone just spun back up the track. Bombard's around in front of Bynum and Hewlick. It was Mike Rogers was the truck I saw venture out towards the racetrack.
Look at Schilling. He's like half out of his stall at this point. I don't know if that's going to cost him any time like that.
Bombard's trying to get turned back around. He does. 2 formations onto pit road, and neither one of them all that pretty near the middle portion of the pack. I'm still trying to figure out, there was one truck that disappeared. It was the 3rd or 4th truck in that second group coming to the commitment line that disappeared. I don't know if they reappeared or if they fell out, but that was a scary moment there for that second group that hit pit lane.
Terry Bombard with a lengthy pit stop, and what I was saying was Schilling was kind of like at an angle in his stall, so I don't know if that affected him or not as well. I just saw Mike Rogers' machine blink again, whether it was sitting there on pit road, and all of a sudden it went out of sight. So it might have been that machine of Mike Rogers, like you suggested, Seth. It might be the either his connection or nope, he mainly disconnected, Seth.
Yep.
So it might have been the whole oh, he reconnected and disconnected. Yeah, he's mainly disconnected, Seth. So it might have been the whole 2 in part thing, or not willing to risk another action to get him parked for next week.
I think I might have pinpointed the truck that disappeared, Jess. I think it might have been John Godfrey in the 7-Eleven. I'm seeing him down at the bottom of the running order right now. I know it was a darker colored truck. I couldn't see if we were looking from the back as they were fanning out heading for pit lane entrance, but I think it might have been John Godfrey. That's a tough break as he was running up there inside of, what was he, 6th or 7th, I think, pretty much the majority of the first half.
I'll go back and look here.
Being scored a lap down.
Yeah. I'm going back, and as I'm going to reverse that.
And now he's showing
I got backward, and he's on pit road, and all of a sudden the camera cuts to the track service, like the pit road entry and all like that. So he fell out at some point and came back in.
I think Glenn Harris might have gotten hit with a speeding penalty potentially. I just noticed that looked like he came back down pit road, and he is going to be on the tail end of the lead lap, currently in 31st position. Looks like David Cannon had an issue on pit road. Yeah. We know that Terry Bombard did, Cy Jones did, Wiley Coat did.
Okay, so coming down to pit road, right before pit road starts, Seth, Godfrey did disappear.
Okay.
I guess he fell out of the server at that point, and then later on he reappeared on pit road again at his stall and started pulling out. So he probably fell out of the server and had to come back in. It's probably one of those alt tabs because Godfrey, it rarely happens to him.
A really weird place for it to happen too, right? We're so used to seeing drivers on the racetrack where they'll fall out, but I don't think I've ever seen a driver fall out when they're coming to pit lane with a group of drivers at a super speedway. I think that might be a first for me.
Okay, after the whole pit road shakeup at this point, Sorry, I was reading the race chat here. So at this point, Seth, we know Godfrey is 2 laps down at this point in the 35th position. So he's got a huge mountain to overcome at this point in time. So he desperately needs to get a caution to get back to 1 lap and then get another one to get him back on the tail end lead lap. Which is, if we look at the handing out tonight so far, it's going to be difficult if we don't get that caution that he needs so desperately at this point in time. Mike Rogers is 4 laps down out of the race, I believe. Got a few drivers 1 lap down. Cannon, Cy Jones, and Wiley Coat. Looking back here, who is it? I think Schilling, if you take away Godfrey and his issue at the point, is it Schilling that's the furthest back at this point, that's in the 18th position for the playoff drivers, besides Godfrey?
Let me double check on that. Yes, I think you're right. Yeah, it would be Brian Schilling.
I'm guessing Bernie was eliminated last week?
Bernie was not in the playoffs.
Oh, I actually thought he was. Well,
no, I think the
Godfrey's coming back in pit road. So Godfrey's coming back down to pit road, so that's going to hurt him again.
I believe, if I can remember off the top of my head, the 5 that were eliminated from the playoffs
last
Godfrey,
week,
Craig Hagley, or not Craig Hagley, let's try that again, Doug Hewlick, Richard Martin, Jeremy Jeffries, then for some reason I can't pull in the other 2.
Godfrey retired, Seth.
That's a tough break there for Godfrey. Like, he's going to get credit for 35th position. Was having a great run, as we mentioned. It was up inside the top 10 just prior to those pit stops. We've got a pack right now of, it looks like, we got 10 drivers on the lead lap in this pack, and then just latching on are the 2 drivers that would hold the free pass position should we get a caution. The 003 of David Cannon and the 7 of Cy Jones. Glenn Harris just got lapped. He is the 3rd truck, 1 lap down. Wiley Coat right now the 4th truck, 1 lap down in the 34th position. 34 drivers running, 30 of them on the lead lap, and we don't have to wait that terribly long. That's Terry Bombard on the top of your screen there going through the tri-oval. He's only about maybe a lap and a half, 2 laps away from being put a lap down himself. Another driver that had an issue on pit road. And you mentioned it, Jess. A lot of these drivers right now, I'm looking at almost a dozen drivers that need a caution to come out at this point in time. Otherwise, we're going to have basically a 10-horse race for the remainder of this run.
Yeah, we got the top 10, and we got a couple lap drivers that are on the tail end of that lead pack. And then we got this pack from 20th and a couple mixed lap drivers in here as well, all the way up to Josh Metallic in the 11th position. These guys are really far back, and I mean, I'm riding with Josh right now. I can barely see the field. They're coming out of the tri-oval while these guys are entering the tri-oval, and I don't know if they're making up any time because these guys up front are single file as well, along with that 2nd pack. So, Seth, this is going to be a tall order for them to try to reel these guys back in.
I just double-checked on that in terms of whether they are closing in or not. Now, yes, they are closing in on that lead pack. Is pack number 2 being led by Josh Metallic, but they're only gaining by about 7 or 8 100ths every lap. You factor into that they are about 6.7 seconds behind the race leader. Yeah, they're gaining, but it might as well be that they're just basically running identical lap times, because you're not going to catch up to this lead group by the time you get around to the next upcoming 2nd round of green flag pit stops.
And if you can't catch them by that 2nd round, it's pretty much dead and over with your chance unless
you get a caution. Yep. Just an update. I did actually go back and check to see about those 5 drivers that were eliminated from the 1st round. John Godfrey, Kelly Causey, Richard Martin, Jeremy Jeffries, and Doug Hewlick. Those were the 5 drivers eliminated from round number 1. You mentioned about Brian Schilling right now being the lowest of the playoff contenders back in 17th. That means all the rest of them are doing a pretty doggone good job. You've got 4 of them actually right now up inside of the top 5. Wesley the leader, DeSpirito 2nd, Farrell in 4th place. Sullen's there in 5th, and right behind him is Bob Seminara in 6th, so you've got 5 of them up inside of the top 6.
You know, I got to thinking about something with Schilling. All right, so you have Metallica who won the championship a couple of seasons back.
Right.
You have Schilling who won last season's championship.
Right.
If it was you in this situation, knowing where you are in the playoffs and how things are shaking out and how the setup is and where you're running out in this race, like you know how Schilling's running 17th and Metallica's right now running 11th. How much does it weigh on your mind knowing that you're a recent champion and you're on the cusp of being eliminated? Does it like light a fire at all in your mind, like, hey, I shouldn't be back here, I need to be up there because I just won the championship not too long ago? Like, does that light a fire and cause any like aggressiveness, like, hey, I gotta do something to go up there because I know I'm better than this?
I think it certainly could, but to that, I kind of feel like you have to put those thoughts in the back of your mind, because right now, if you're Metallic, if you're Schilling, you've got to control what you can control. You can't make up 6 seconds in 2 laps. You know that is not possible.
Actually, you could.
You could use an EXE, but
No. I mean, you could be really extremely conniving admin and put a certain command in there to give you the advantage. But,
there are ways, anyway. But not ethical ways. But I mean, you know, right now you just basically have to. If you're Josh Metallic, what he's doing right now, being the lead truck of that pack, he's in the 11th position. Granted, he's nowhere up near the top 10. But 11th place is going to pay out a lot more points than 21st place, which is the last truck in the pack that he's leading right now. So control what you can control. Get the points that are available to you right now. If a caution flies, then you can amend your strategy. But I think that you're going to paint yourself into a pretty bad corner if you try stepping the aggression up just a little bit more here and kind of overstep the boundary and put yourself in maybe an insurmountable odds going into next week at BSR.
Let me throw you a scenario, okay?
Okay.
At this point in time, you're saying you'd rather be 11th than 20. Yeah, I agree with that, but here's an idea. If we run green flag all the way to the end, okay? I'm just saying hypothetically if or whatever, and or maybe a caution comes out or something like that. I mean, actually I should say caution because that would screw up the whole strategy. If you're running 11th right now and you're looking at your fuel mileage, wouldn't you rather be in a Chuck McClure or a DMAR position right now, trying to save a little bit instead of pulling that whole train?
Yeah, I mean, that is a good point. Stretch it a little bit, especially with the fact that if you end up coming to pit road and say you fall a lap down, having to pit a couple laps earlier because of leading that train, as you mentioned, using up more fuel, caution comes out and you're either trapped a lap down or you end up losing a ton of track position, then you kind of go back and wonder, was that the right call, being out in front of that pack? So yeah, that's just the unpredictability of super speedway racing.
Seth?
Oh, we've been watching this. We've been watching this. They were peaking.
Sorry.
They kept peaking. Despirito was peaking high on Wesley. Nofsker was peaking high on Despirito. And Bob Seminara said, heck with this. I'm going to form an outside line. Dante Ricky went with him, and Wesley and Despirito saw that coming. They jumped up there as well.
I was just going to mention, like, hey, yeah, these guys are going side by side now. That's going to help that second group come back in.
Definitely is. As a matter of fact, last time by, we talked about 6.7 seconds. It was 5.6 seconds from the lead pack back to Josh Metallic. Now they're going to start getting strung out single file here again. Dave Cannon trapped up on that top line. He is a lap machine, so he still is in a free pass spot with Cy Jones.
With them moving to the bottom of the track, yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, when you move to the bottom of the track, you check up a little bit more, and you lose a little bit more speed, you get a little bit slower, and at the same time, you lose a little bit of mile per hour off the exit or in the entry of turn 1 and 2 and exit as well, because you're pushing up, or you might have to back off to maintain yourself. But is this a prelude to possible pit stops coming, is what I'm wondering? Because it's lap 35. We should be seeing pit stops in the next 5 laps, I would imagine.
Yeah, definitely. The thing that kind of surprised me, though, was normally when you're at the beginning of a run after making a pit stop, everybody migrates to that middle line. Grant Wesley and Joe Despirito, they've been committed to that yellow line ever since they left pit lane the entirety of this run. So going back to your point about that checkup that takes place on the inside line, that's why we saw Bob Seminara and Dante Ricci be able to utilize the second lane and make their way up to third and fourth. I believe they, after the pit stops were over, I think they were back in sixth and seventh. So they gained about 3 or 4 spots there. And we've heard this from the drivers before. This run between pit stops is setting yourself up for the upcoming round of pit stops. You try and gain that extra position or 2 on the track, and it could translate to another 1 or 2 positions gained on pit road, depending on how good your pit stop is. We got a couple of drivers that dove onto pit lane there. One looked like it was Jim Black. I think the other one might have been Nathan Balser.
At this point in time, Seth, this also sets you up for the final pit stop, too. Try to get you enough track position for that final stop, which is the most crucial stop of the whole evening, depending on where you're running.
And I'm trying to remember, if we go completely green in a race, that final pit stop is within, what, 5 or 6 laps to go, I think, isn't it? Somewhere around that range. So
roughly about between 7 to 10. So
yeah.
It's going to be close. I mean, usually it's between a half a can to a can if they mind their P's and Q's. But
we have drivers pitting here. Looks like it. Dante Ricci jumped up to the second
there's
group.
the Spirito, Seminara, Wesley are coming in. Jeffries and Dante stay out. They're going to inherit the lead.
Nelson, Farrell, and Cannon come in as well with the top 3. Doesn't look like anybody from Group 2 hit pit road.
No, they're trying to run that first group down, so
yeah.
They're not going to play. Actually, DeMar came in. And DeMar was a couple of spots behind, or at least I thought DeMar was behind Metallic and Chuck, wasn't he?
Was a gap from the 17 back to the next truck, so maybe. Looking to see what my scoring says. Martin was... Well, my scoring updated, so I don't know. I don't know where he was before he came to pit road.
Your memory fails. All right, here comes Dante and Jeremy Jeffries and Novsker and Rodney Sullivan on pit road, Seth.
Greg Palmer and the lap car of Cy Jones.
Whoa! A little bit of a wobble there from Rodney, almost getting into the side of the 22 machine.
Good save there. Smaller packs than what we saw in the first round of pit stops, so we've yet to really see any incidents. There's the bigger group. That second pack coming down with Metallic, McClure. Oh, whoa!
Whoa, Cravello's around. What?
And also the 28 of Mark Paglia going through the grass. I don't know if he got some help from, was that Wiley Coate that was behind him in the 5? The 28 is still there in the infield grass. Now he's gotten it refired. Paglia was trying to see where his pit stall would have been. He was 18th, well 16th actually, on the grid. Yeah, his pit stall is right there, and he's going to be able to make it. Ooh, he came back onto pit road just about 2 pit stalls behind where his pit area was. So very lucky that he didn't spin past his stall. I think Dante Ricci, after all is said and done, might cycle out to the lead, but here comes Despirito, Seminara, and Farrell, that group that's already up to speed. Oh, bump there from Jeremy Jeffries, trying to get Dante Ricci going, but that was a little sketch right in the center of the corner. And here comes the 24, high, wide, and handsome. Seminara, Farrell, Melson, Wesley gonna follow around. Let's remember what's at stake here as well. We've mentioned all these drivers that are up in this lead pack. Despirito, Seminara, Farrell, Wesley, Rodney Sullins, all playoff contenders. If they win here tonight, they know for absolute certainty they are going to battle for the championship in the final 2 races of the season, regardless of what takes place next week at Burnt Screwdrivers Raceway.
And you know BSR, Seth, we saw what happened last time at BSR. There was
crazy.
A lot of action. There was a lot of craziness that happened that we hadn't seen before, period. So with it being a second round elimination, I mean, I'm actually expecting pretty much the same thing we saw last time.
The regular season finale was wild in trying to figure out who was going to get those final few spots in the playoffs, whether it be via a last-minute win or via points. And to your point there, that last week's race that whittled our field down from 13 playoff drivers to 8 was absolutely insane. And we know that if a driver wins here tonight, a playoff contender, that at least 3 drivers, maximum 3 drivers, will point their way into the Final Four. So it's going to be a lot of drivers trying to get what they can next week, as got some more drivers that are going to go a lap down here, as we've run green flag from the very start of this race. 40 laps, about to be 41 laps completed under green flag conditions. It's funny because a couple of drivers we talked to down the home stretch of the regular season said, you know, Talladega has been the wild card track this year. We've had quite a number of races where you've had to really brush up on your wreck avoidance. PSR has been the track that's been relatively calm, where you plan for the long green flag runs. Kind of polar opposites. Last week was the mayhem race. This week it's the long green flag runs at Dega.
Well, I can guarantee you when we're done with this and we're in the Final Four, I don't see that happening.
Yeah, I don't think we'll have a calm race after that.
Anyway, Seth, I'm looking at this pack of 3 here. Schilling, McClure, and Metallic. They're by themselves, and really, going back to what we've talked about, pit stops are critical, and they had already technically lost the draft to begin with at that point, and then pit stops happen, and look at them, they're on their own now. They execute their pit stops fine and decent, and I have no idea. We got this whole pack back here where Knopsker, Sullins, Palmer, Jeffries, and this is the lead pack at this point, right? And look at how far back those 3 are by themselves, and they're really hoping and praying for a caution at this point in time to catch up.
Here's the strange thing too, right? Schilling and Metallic are running 11th and 13th. That's not that bad, but you consider the fact that the other 5 playoff drivers that started tonight's race are all currently running up inside of the top 9. I don't, obviously, with how close the points are, I can't say this for absolute certainty, but it's possible that even if McClure, Metallic and Schilling finish where they're at right now, they still, with top 15 runs, could be below the cut line, below the 4th in the standings cut line going into the elimination race. That's crazy.
And I'm watching this battle back here. I mean, not really a battle, I'm sorry, like the semi, quote-unquote, third pack, if you want to call it the third pack, or just the main second pack. They're slowly trying to reel in that top 3. Now, the question I'd have is, if I'm Doug Hewlett, and I got this huge run, what would you rather do? Would you rather start trying to maintain your pace of speed and try to work with these guys, or just go around them and just screw up the whole entire line and screw up any chance of, I mean, really, the chance of reeling them in is kind of moot at this point, but 7.5 seconds back, Seth. I don't know what you think at this point here.
Let's see what he does. He's got a big push. Yeah, he got a big push from Donnie Garrett all the way through that trial, but there's just too much momentum to try dragging the brake and tuck in behind the 39. So now, the 11th and 13th positions. Oh, Jim Black spun off the nose of Richard Martin as he had to check up for the 39 of Josh Metallic, and no caution. The spin was below the racing surface.
It's one of those things again, Seth.
It is indeed.
Randomly happen if it's underneath that line, underneath that apron. It's not going to happen. It's not going to come out and save you.
Black was trying to follow behind Doug Kulik and Donnie Garrett to the inside of the 3 wide nose to tail contingency of McClure, Schilling, and Metallic. Looked like he pushed up off of turn 2. Had to lift to avoid getting left rear quarter panel of Josh Metallic, and Richard Martin was into the back of
Jim
him.
Black's retired now.
And it looks like he's going to join Mark Paglia, who retired back during that second round of green flag pit stops. Nate Balser, John Godfrey, and Mike Rogers also back in the garage area. So that's going to leave us 31 drivers running. And right now, only 21 are on the lead lap. We've got about 3 or 4 that in the next, I'd say 5 or 6 laps, they're going to go a lap down too. So we're going to be down to about 17 drivers left on the lead lap.
But
and that's with another round of pit stops coming.
I do want to point out the one happy thing that these playoff contenders are thinking about is, hey, I'm still on the lead lap. I mean, aside from Godfrey, every single playoff contender is on the lead lap and inside the top 21, which is basically, I think the last one right now is Josh Metallic labeled in 13th. So
Right.
I mean, they're riding pretty good, knowing that hey, if we go green all the way to the end, there's a good chance we're gonna be on the lead lap, and we're not gonna have to worry about finishing any lower than 17th technically at this point in time. But I mean, Seth, I'd want a caution if I were them badly.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We're showing the playoff points coming to this race once again. And if you're just joining us, Keith Hughes, who is in a tie for second in the reformatted points here for the round of 8, did not take the green flag here tonight. So if it wasn't already an understood fact before the green flag flew tonight that he'd be going into next week's race at BSR in a must-win situation, with the fact that the other 7 remaining playoff drivers that are in the field tonight are running up inside of the top 15, it is basically you've got to get a checkered flag if you're going to advance in the Final Four for the 2-time winner, Keith Hughes.
All right, this pack here has got a little bit of side-by-side going on at this point in time, Seth. You got Tate Dorsey and Novsker, the 63 of Keith Bynum. They're racing pretty hard against Rodney Sullins, Greg Palmer back here. It's like, I don't know if I mean, do you see how Keith Bynum is able to gain a little bit of ground here with Knoxer pushing him? But I just, whoa, really close to the 22 machine of Palmer there off the corner of turn 2. But at this point in time, I don't know if this is going to really do much to help at all. That's the other pack.
Doesn't look like it. I'm looking right now at lap times. Joe DeSpirito, the leader of this group, this lead group, ran a 48.2. The leader of the second group, Brian Schilling, ran a 47.8. Now, granted, that is 0.4 of a second, but it's 7.5 seconds from Schilling up to DeSpirito. So again, same situation as we were talking about in the last run. They are gaining, but not enough to that they would be up in the same vicinity as the lead pack when we get to potentially that final round of green flag pit stops. And we've got this kind of race within the race here at the tail end of this lead pack that we do have to keep an eye on if we end up getting a caution in the latter stages. Keith Bynum, David Cannon, and Tate Dorsey are all 1 lap down. 2 drivers get the free pass under each caution. So right now, between the 63, the 3, and the 46, there's going to be 1 odd man out that's not going to get back in the lead lap if we see a yellow.
Yeah, and that's the big key right now is if we see the yellow. And we see these drivers coming down a little bit. You know what that means. We got about 16 laps or so before the end of this race. So they're going to be thinking about pit stops. But while we got a chance, Seth, what do you say we take a quick shout out to our sponsor that sponsors the RTG Tally Challenge for FRN?
Yeah, we've got about 9 laps before that potential round of green flag pit stops. Hopefully, they'll be able to keep it green. If trouble breaks out, we'll break in. But we're going to take you side by side with a word here tonight from Ultimate Garage Floors. The following presentation of the Rolling Thunder Gaming Talladega Challenge Series on the Flatout Racing Network is brought to you by Ultimate Garage Floors. Ultimate Garage Floors is very active in the garage remodeling community, staying current with the latest technologies and custom configurations so that we can bring you the highest quality installations. As a Northern Virginia Exposy flooring installer, we focus on garages and commercial flooring to perfect our craft and bring you high results. In a space that gets as much wear and tear as your garage, you want to be able to trust that the cabinets and flooring we install are ready to withstand against high traffic and regular use. That is why we include a lifetime warranty with our services so that you know we stand behind the quality of our work. To get started with a free consultation, call us at 540-931-9006 or visit us on the web at ultimategaragefloorsva.net. That's ultimategaragefloorsva.net. welcome you back here as we're closing in on 10 laps to go in our third playoff race of the 58th season of the Rolling Thunder Gaming Talladega Challenge Series. Yes, indeed. We are getting set for what's going to be the money stop. We've run green flag the entirety of the night. I was going to say clean and green, but we've had some incidents that have been down below the racing line, so we can't say that we've been clean, but we haven't. The flagman's had nothing to do, at least in the flag stands, since the start of this race.
And at this point, Wiley, Bernie Miles, Bob Dixon, Tom Dixon, and Glenn Harris are all pitting or have pitted at this point in time. So, and I'm trying to watch Cy Jones come off pit road a little earlier. So this group's done. Now we got 51. Oh, 52, I'm sure, at this point, because I'm still in Cy Jones. It looks like Cy Jones is still in third gear, Seth, going 182. He did not blow a gear.
Interesting.
Huh.
Is he by himself?
Yeah, he is.
Okay, that might be why. It is a little bit faster to run by yourself in third gear than it is in fourth gear. Fourth gear, a little bit more of a draft gear.
Anyway, going back to this group here, at this point in time, you want to try to stay as long as possible in case of that caution, because if you're on pit road during a caution, it can screw up your strategy all the way. And we saw that the Spirito and Seminare were up near the front, and all of a sudden, they moved to the bottom, and the whole field just up and went right around them, and now they're finding themselves back in 9th and 8th position, Seth. So I don't know what's going on here. They're all on the bottom, looking like they're probably going to be pitting very soon.
I got a question for you. I want to pick your brain as far as fuel. You talk about stretching it as far.
Really? You're going to do this to me?
Well, you know, you've been in the situation in these type of races. If you can stretch it to the point of, well, actually, they're coming to pit road here, but I'm just going to ask the question anyway.
Watch it, Novsker.
Boy, Novsker loves to flirt with that inside wall, doesn't he? Oh, Spirito! And Seminara, they made contact, and Seminara gets on the brakes. Oh, that's going to lose him a lot of time, though. Has to get the truck turned back around. But I was going to ask, you know, these drivers look like they're pitting here with the fuel window open, around 10 to go. Stretching it as far as you can possibly go, could that make the difference between you taking on a can and a half and taking on a can? The amount of time spent on pit lane.
Oh, gosh. When we all had that pit stop that cycled around, Seth, I honestly... These guys aren't going to be able to stay out another lap. I don't see them staying out another lap. Nope, here they come. They're coming.
Here they come.
I was going to say, if these guys could stay out another lap or two... Whoa, Donnie with a whole group! Bam, bam! He just hit Schilling. Schilling's around with Metallic.
And Jeff Crivello. I thought we were going to have a caution because I saw Craig Hagley get spun back up the track, but I think he kept it going. I don't think he actually spun.
Schilling and Metallic are good, so thankfully.
So that's the two drivers right there that have had some issues on this final pit stop, Seminara and Schilling, as far as playoff drivers.
Getting back to your question, though, it would be hard to say. If you went back to green with about a certain amount of length time-wise to go, like, I'll just say 20 laps, and if you see it, like, go a can and a half to 2 cans, and back to a can and a half, if you could start clutching at that point for, like, maybe 5 to 6 laps, you might be good enough to go to a can and a half.
Okay.
But you would lose so much time. Depending on where you are on the track, you would lose too much time clutching and track position. That's very valuable because you're more focused on trying to save fuel. Yeah, you might make that back up at the end of the race, but if they all pit, you might gain 1 or 2 spots depending on who's around you, but it's not going to be that big of a difference because they're technically taking about roughly the same amount that you're going to be taking, and it's probably going to take the same amount of time because you never know, like... I'm fumbling all over myself now. So, it's like, if your pit stop's like 15.3, okay, their pit stops might be 15.5 or 15.6. It's not gonna be that big of a difference at that point in time. No, it's not worth it. Now, if you had maybe 10 or 9, 10, 11 laps to go, you just pitted at that point, you might be able to get away with a can. and not take a can and a half. You know what I mean? But it just depends on when you pit and how many laps are left. That's all I can tell you at this point, because it just depends on the scenario.
There wasn't much in it in terms of when that first pack pit of that second pack staying out for a lengthy period of time. That was the 39 of Josh Metallic just coming back off pit road.
Remember him and Schilling got nailed a little bit with the Donnie Garrett machine coming down really low and whatnot.
Yeah, but
so
I believe
with
he
that
might
being
have,
said, that might have prompted a black flag.
I think that's exactly what happened. Looks like Ken Roberts and Keith Bynum also got penalties on their pit stops, and they had to come back down and serve them. So that drops Josh Metallic all the way down to at least 18th. He'll fall a lap down.
And you know, and pit road can be kind of treacherous in that regard too, because say if you got hit before the entry of pit road or right there at the entry of pit road, and you're sideways and another truck makes contact with you. Now, sometimes they allow you to go ahead and go fix your damage, whatnot, and go. If you get hit, you might go over the 55 because of a little shot, a little bump, or whatever that might nail you a little bit faster, right? But then there are times where the game will randomly say that's an unsafe pit entry, and it's not your own fault. It's nothing to do with your own issue whatsoever. You're just the victim of circumstance at that point.
Right. Well, Rodney Sullins right now needs these drivers to race it up. You've got 4 drivers in this 5-car pack that are on the lead lap. Dante Ricky, Grant Wesley, Jeremy Jeffries, and Tim Knopfsker. You've got the lap car sandwiched in there, the Batmobile number 45 of Tom Dixon, and just a little ways back there is the 21 of Brian Ronson. I've been looking at the lap times. It is about 3 seconds.
Whoa, back here, Wreck. Terry Bombard and JT Mayhew in the corner.
No
and
caution.
Stop, hold it. Right there in front of the leaders, too. Come on down, JT, get out of the way.
Caution's out. Caution's out. It's on lap 62.
And Seth, this changes everything.
But it's on lap 62. We're coming to the completion of 62.
Oh,
Is this the end of the race?
Dante and Grant going at it.
Here we go. Oh, Jeremy Jeffries. This is the battle potentially for the win. Grant wants that automatic ticket into the Final Four. Dante Ricky in his second start's trying to keep him at bay. He wants the checkered flag. Here we go through the tri-oval. Big run by Grant.
Oh.
Knopfsker to the apron. And Dante Ricky is going to hold them off. That was completion of 62 onto 63 with the lap trucks. I think that was the checkered flag right there. I think Dante Ricky's picked up his first win on the season and denied Grant Wesley an automatic ticket into the Final Four.
Seth, you need to wait until it's official.
That's true. That is true. I was going to mention the fact that that second group with Rodney Sullins and company, they were running identical lap times with the lead pack. They were going to need them to race it up to be able to reel them in, but this caution changes up everything, and let's go back and see what brought out. I can't believe I'm saying this. 63 laps in, the first caution of the night.
Yeah, it started with, I believe, the JT Mayhew machine, I believe, and the machine of Terry Bombard. It's like they get really close, and it's just a little bit of a racing circumstance where they're really wanting to have that same real estate. They think they're clear, and just a little bit of a bumper grab. It might have been bumper grab or a hook. I can't really tell at this point on my end. Just so that they're just wanting the same real estate, Seth.
And this was, I believe, for most of the drivers in that pack battling for position. Most of the drivers in that group you just saw were one lap down, anywhere from 19th back to 24th.
And that had to be the scariest thing for Dante and Grant, coming in that corner and seeing oh Lord, stay, get out the track.
And a lot of times we end up seeing cautions come out in the latter stages when the leaders are over in turn 4 or even just making their way halfway through the tri-oval. The timing of this yellow gave Grant Wesley, Jeremy Jeffries, Dante Ricky almost, 3/4 of a track to be able to battle it out coming back to the caution. We're going to follow it again here, this battle on what's technically going to be the final lap under green flag conditions here. Watch Grant do everything he can to get around the Mug Root Beer Toyota Tundra of Dante Ricky. Looks high, looks low, little bumper grab there. It's forced down onto the apron. gets into Jeremy Jeffries, and then we saw this is when we got back to the race leaders, this run back to the caution flag and potentially the checkered flag here tonight. Interesting you bring up you kind of look at this about the non-playoff drivers being the X factor. Dante Ricky knows. He knows Grant Wesley is battling for the championship. He knows he's a playoff driver, but that doesn't matter. He was going to do everything in his power to make that bumper as wide as possible and deny Grant Wesley the checkered flag.
And didn't we say a little earlier, what if Dante was in that position? What, we were talking about how Dante would race and whatnot. Yeah, and then at the same time, denying Grant Wesley an automatic ticket to the end of the round. That goes back to these other drivers that are non-playoff drivers throwing in a little bit of a factor here. I mean, we look at the finish line. Most of the playoff drivers are pretty decently well positioned in the top 10. You had Seminara in 12th, Schilling in 11th, but otherwise pretty decent run for most of the guys. I mean, Josh unfortunately finishes 19th at this point in time. If we don't go back to green ... But yeah, I just think if this is like the case of repetition here, Seth. We saw Donnie Garrett get a win a few weeks back, and that threw a curveball with a few of the drivers trying to get in as well, right? Because they had to go on points. They couldn't automatically get ticketed in. So at this point in time, Grant looks like he might be sitting kind of pretty. Where was he coming in at the beginning of this for the playoffs?
I believe he was. No, he was 4th. He was the cut line driver, 8 points.
Okay, well, this right here is going to set him nice and pretty at this point.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So the big loser on this would not just be Godfrey and Keith Hughes, like you said, but Metallic is going to take a big hit.
I was just following Metallic down pit road. Like with pit road open the second time, lap down cars could come down pit road if they wanted to, and a bunch of drivers came down pit lane. Metallic was one of them. And I was trying to figure out, why would you come down pit road with the possibility of throwing away positions, but he actually passed through pit road.
Yeah, most of the time at this point in time, Seth, they asked that the lap drivers come down pit road.
Okay, because I was wondering if maybe he was trying to sucker in some of the drivers ahead of him a lap down and maybe pick up another spot or two before the conclusion of this race, kind of make them think he was going to come down and take service or top off the fuel tank, and instead he just passed right on through.
Well, look at this 3-wide little parade up here. So after this lap 65, so it's pretty cemented that we are going to be ending the race at this point in time. So it looks like Dante's going to grab himself a win.
He is,
and indeed. I believe like what, his second or third start of the season?
I believe it's his second start on the year. I think he had one start prior, and that was near the end of the regular season.
I know he had one, it was last week or week before last, but what I'm saying is this is either his second or third.
I'll double check on that. I'll take a look and see. It's interesting when you look at the 4 drivers that were in that lead pack to battle for this checkered flag. You got Dante Ricky, who's made a very limited number of starts this season, really nothing to lose. You had Jeremy Jeffries, who got eliminated from the playoffs last week, so he's got nothing to lose now. And Tim Knopfsker didn't even make the playoffs this season. Couldn't find victory lane and was unable to point his way in, so he had nothing to lose. The driver that had everything to lose was Grant Wesley, and it kind of makes me think back to the last time we were here at Talladega 2 weeks ago. It was Brian Schilling against Donnie Garrett. Garrett had nothing to lose. Schilling had everything to lose in terms of maybe putting himself in a bad predicament of being eliminated out of the round of 13. So you have to wonder if Grant Wesley, he was aggressive on the back straight, but you wonder if he was conservatively aggressive, knew that he could win the race, but he didn't want to throw away second.
That is a really strong possibility, because we've talked about this in the past as well, where do you want to go and try to win the race, or because you know you could, but at the same time, are you just confident of just staying where you are and not losing the possibility of several spots in case they do? And Tom Dixon stopped on pit road, stopped on the racetrack back here off of turn 4. What's going on with him?
Sure, let's see if we can find. Yeah, there he is. Oh, he got refired. I don't know what the situation was there for the 45.
Lap machine, I think. That might have been what it was, and he was up
Might
in the
have been.
front. Anyway, but we've talked about that, before in the past as well, with just be content with what you got.
Yep.
And not lose too much by making a move that may cost you. At that point, he knew where he was. He knew who was around him. So Grant just confidently just going to stay in second and gain some much needed points at this point in time, because a couple of weeks back we saw a chance he might be eliminated, and then he's right here at the cutoff line again, might be eliminated. Now look at him. He's in a little bit better predicament at this point in time, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely, and kind of going back, just talking about the a lot to lose situation for Grant Wesley. We've seen drivers in the past in a battle for the win in the closing stages make a move that is deemed their responsibility and get hit with a post-race penalty. Grant would not want to get that with what good situation he will be with this runner-up finish going into that elimination race. I look back, Dante Ricky, third start on the season. His two previous finishes, 24th and 21st. Tonight, it's a first-place finish. Here in his third start of the year, he takes the checkered flag tonight at Talladega Superspeedway.
And another thing, I do want to give a quick shout-out to Rodney Sullins, because remember how he's been battling, and look where he finished at.
Yep, gonna finish this race out in the 5th position. Almost had a shot of maybe being in the conversation for this race win if that lead pack had raced it up and given the second pack a little bit of time to reel them in, but still a top 5 performance. And
I mean, I'm happy that in a way I understand he's sore. He probably really maybe would have rather just relaxed tonight, but yeah, he raced and he made it worthwhile, didn't he?
Did indeed. Right now, looks like Grant Wesley, Rodney Sullins, and maybe Joe DeSpirito and Brian Schilling. Those might be the 4 above the cut line heading into the elimination race next week, but who knows? The points were just so close.
Bobby Farrell finished 8th, Spirito 9th, and Schilling back in 11th, and Seminary in 12th. So I guess we'll just have to wait in the next few minutes to see what the points say.
Yeah, I would say probably Seminary and Metallic would be below the cut line, but I don't think it would be by much. Metallic came in the points leader.
So can we quickly just touch on it? Just touch on it, and yeah, I think you know where I'm going with this. Really didn't talk about it because of the whole playoff scenario, but we had a bracket battle tonight.
We did, and it actually ended up basically being decided before the green flag even flew. It was going to be Seminara versus Keith Hughes in round 7 of the losers bracket. And with Keith not making the appearance tonight, Seminara will move on. He'll take on Josh Metallic next week. Winner of that faces off against the winners bracket champion Brian Schilling in 2 weeks' time. Seminara versus Metallic, a couple of former champions and a couple of drivers that may be trying to advance above the cut line next week.
With a lot of these drivers finishing pretty decent here, it's going to be kind of a tight battle going in the next week too.
Super close. The only driver we know that is going to be in a desperate mode is going to be Keith Hughes.
Godfrey too.
Oh, Godfrey got eliminated last week.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Oh my God. I don't know why I was still thinking he was still there. I'm sorry.
It's all good. No, Hughes is the only one that's in a must-win right now. I'm going to be very interested to see how close these points are, though. From, well, I'm going to assume Grant Wesley is the points leader from Wesley down to Metallic.
Well, with Keith Hughes, I honestly don't think even if he does get eliminated, he's got anything to be worried about, because based on his performance this season, I think it's pretty doggone solid.
I think it is too. I'm trying to figure out if we got a camera angle here. Looks like Dante's parking it right next to the RTG logo. We don't have a camera angle that shows the RTG logo and him in it, unfortunately. Might be trying to get a race win photo maybe or something for later on.
More than likely, show off, ...
Either that or he forgot how to find victory lane.
Too much root beer.
Could very well be.
So, Jeremy Jeffries, you said he's been eliminated from the playoffs, not in, but he made it worthwhile. I mean, he finished third. You think we should go ahead and bring him back?
Absolutely. Let's see if we can dial up driver of that number one Valvoline Chevrolet Silverado. Jeremy, it's Jess and Seth up here in the FRN booth. You got us?
I do. How you guys doing?
Doing good. This was a very interesting race, to say the least. Coming in the first race of the round of 8, we knew there were going to be a lot of drivers that were going to be gunning for that checkered flag. The odds of a playoff driver winning here tonight, very, very slim. Unfortunately, we saw you get eliminated from the playoffs last week, so we know you were definitely going to do everything in your power to be the first one back to that checkered flag. But just kind of describe from start to finish how the strategy had to vary when we went green, had a first round of green flag pit stops, continued green all spread out, had another round of green flag pit stops. You're getting planned pretty much to have this race run completely green to the finish. Then the caution comes out, and it's you and two others basically to duke it out for about 3/4 of a racetrack.
Oh, and that was a very, very uneventful race until the last 5 laps there, which I'm thankful for because last week was just complete chaos. Knocked me out of the chase, like you said. But strategy wise, I actually, every time the leaders pitted, I went an extra lap. I was thinking if it stayed green, maybe I could, take a can and they'd have to take a can and a half. But it turned out that they only had to take a can too. And ultimately, it didn't matter because, like you said, the caution came out.
Yeah, Jeremy, great run tonight. Seeing you get a podium finish. With this being in the books now, and we had this long green flag run. Seth and I discussed it a little earlier. In your mind, how does this, in your opinion, affect you moving to BSR, knowing that these guys may get a little bit more aggressive, and how you're no longer in, unfortunately, the championship talk at this point in time, but as a non-playoff driver trying to get wins, like, how does your mind focus on this coming up to the elimination race next week?
I'm just, I'd like to have a nice, clean race. Like to be there at the end and have a chance at it. And if not, then help one of these other guys that, actually still have something to race for.
We ended up watching that battle there coming back to the start finish line. A lot of blocks, a lot of contact there. You guys all kept it together, but right in the middle of that was playoff contender Grant Wesley. Obviously, there's got to be a knowing of non-playoff drivers to playoff drivers of, hey, I understand you're racing for a championship, but I want to end the season with as many checkered flags as I possibly can here as well. Is there an understanding there of the drivers in that kind of regard?
Oh yeah, I know it was. I think 3 non-chase drivers and 1 chase driver in that top group. I wasn't going to try to do anything to put Grant in jeopardy there because I know what he's racing for, and uh, there was a crazy block by Dante at the end there that was it was great. We got a little sideways, but nobody wrecked, and it got him the race win. So congrats to him, and it was a fun race, I guess, but. Man, I'd like to have that win or, try next week, I guess.
Next week, heading to that second elimination race of the playoffs at Burnt Screwdrivers Raceway. But congratulations on a great run here tonight, Jeremy. Obviously, we would love to have still seen you in the playoffs battling for the championship, but still with the good, consistent runs here in that number one truck. Before we let you go, the floor is yours for thank you, sponsors, and shoutouts.
Again, congrats to Dante. Good win there. Thanks to you guys at FRN, the owners and the rest of the staff at RTG, the drivers as well, family, friends, XFM teammates, and everybody that's watching. Thank you.
That's Jeremy Jeffries. He brings it home on the podium, third place here tonight at Talladega. He'll try and get that checkered flag next week when we head to BSR. Best of luck then, Jeremy, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thanks, you too.
Hey, Seth.
Yes,
I
indeed.
do want to point out before we move on to our runner-up guy, Grant here. The playoffs were updated. The whole standings are updated. Grant Wesley, Brian Schilling, Josh Metallic, Bob Seminara, Bobby Farrell, Rodney Solons, Joe DeCerto, and Keith Hughes. That's your top 8 at this point in time. Now, going back to where Despirito is in 7th, that's 16 points. It's 6 points back between Grant and Brian Schilling. The cutoff being Bob Seminara right now, 14 back, is tied with Bobby Farrell with 14 back, and Rodney is 15 back. So
Oh
it's
gosh.
gonna be really tight. It's 6 back, 11 back, 14, 14, 15, and then Despirito with 16. So it's gonna be really hectic next week.
That's 5 points separating 3rd through 7th. Oh my gracious.
Yeah,
That's
we're gonna have fun next week, aren't we?
whew, gracious. My calculator's gonna be in overload next week trying to figure that one out.
Keith Hughes is unfortunately at 40 points back, so he's
Right.
probably going to be in a very must-win situation next week.
Boy, it's amazing when you consider that Grant almost won this race, finished 2nd, and he's only 14 points above the cut line. He with a bad run next week, he could still potentially fall outside of the top 4. My goodness, that is gonna be
So
very
now that gives you
interesting.
some food for thought to chew on when we bring up Grant.
Oh yeah, it's a lot of storylines heading into next week for sure. Let's see if we can dial up Grant Wesley, who brings it home 2nd place here tonight. Grant, Jess, and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got a copy?
Yeah, I got you.
Oh man, I'll tell you what, you made a couple of bold moves there coming to that caution. You tried there on the back straightaway. You tried again out of turn number 4. Now, I recalled this to Jess the last time we were at Talladega. It was Donnie Garrett versus Brian Schilling, non-playoff driver versus playoff driver. And Brian said, I was big picture racing, realizing I got a lot more to lose than he does. So I wasn't going to be all that terribly aggressive and put myself in a bad spot. Were you thinking about that here tonight going up against Dante Ricky, who making his 3rd start, he had nothing to lose?
Yeah, I'll be honest. Coming down. Well, I seen JT, or yeah, I think it was JT. He was wrecked there in 1 and 2, and I was just praying he was going to hold the brake, which he did. He stayed up top. Of course, caution came out as we came off turn 2. A few of us kind of checked up in that corner to slow down for what we didn't know what was going to happen, so we kind of got spread out. And going down the backstretch, we all had massive runs. I knew the one truck was going to stick with me, Jeremy. So I pretty much just had to pick my lane, and I picked a lane. And yeah, Dante, man, that was the craziest block I've ever seen in my life. And to your point, I at that point I wasn't even thinking about, hey, don't wreck this thing. You're in a good position for the chase. I was seeing that win, and I went for it. And as soon as he knocked me down to the apron, I was thinking, oh shoot, I might have just screwed up. I'm in the chase. Just seconds, all right. But we made it back up on the track, and we made it back across line in 2nd. Congratulations to Dante on that win.
I have 2 questions for you, Grant, and by the way, congratulations on getting the 2nd place. The first question I have is, knowing next week being the elimination race, and we saw what happened last time out, last week, how hectic it was and how aggressive you guys were racing and whatnot. Based on how tight the playoff points are going into next week, I mean, you are sitting nice and pretty on top at this point in time, but this is only a 16-point lead you have back to Joe Despirito, who's in 7th at this point in time. And the cutoff is currently tied in 14 points back, and what Seth says, like, it's about 5 or 6 positions. Now, with next week being hectic, more than likely like last week, with the lotto queue, well, how are you going to, if you get a back of the field type lotto queue, right? How aggressive are you going to try to march up to the front at this point in time, or are you just going to sit back there and ride and just try to be careful, knowing how aggressive the racing will probably be next week, how tight the points are?
Yeah, yeah, you mentioned that lotto queue. Wow, I was really shocked I got the pole for this one. But anytime I start up front, it seems like the race just doesn't go my way, like a few weeks ago. So yeah, if I start in the back, I'll be charging to get to the front, and in a way, I kind of hope I start in the back. I guess it ramps up the intensity a little bit. You feel like you're in danger, so it just intensifies the need to get towards the front. So yeah, I mean, I'm fine with that. I totally welcome starting in the back for next week. Yeah.
I have a like a personal food for thought question for you now. You saw how the whole season's been so far. With you got to make it to this point, only a certain amount of people get in. Then you got 2 races. Second one's gonna be an elimination race, different tracks. It's flip flopping every week technically in that position. Are you a fan of this format, or do you prefer the old format?
Oh, huge fan. You know, all the admins here for Talladega or Tally Challenge. Excuse me, Talladega Challenge. All the admins here, man, they do such an awesome job keeping it interesting, changing things up with the chase formats and the lotto queues. You know, and then introducing a second track for this season. Yeah, I think it's wonderful.
Well, Grant, a great run for you here tonight. As you mentioned, didn't get the win, but you got some really good points there with this runner-up finish. So you take the points lead heading into next week. Got to preserve that 14-point advantage to advance your way into the Final Four in the hopes of getting your second championship here this season. Before we let you go, though, we're going to hand over the mic to you for some thank you sponsors and shout-outs.
Yeah, I just want to, I guess, give a shout out to a few guys that really helped me throughout this race. Joe DeSpirito, he stuck with me. It seemed like the first half of the race, you know, I led the most laps, all thanks to him pushing me. So yeah, thanks to that. Thanks to Jeremy Jeffries there at the end. I know he was going to stick on my back bumper, so you know, your allies, you know, can make your race here at Talladega. So thanks to you guys. Thanks to the owners here, Sean Prime, David Cannon, the admins, Josh, Wiley, and Tim. FRN, Flatout Racing Network. Thank you, Seth and Jess. You guys are great. Thanks to my teammates at XFM. I think I got some friends from work actually watching tonight. That's pretty cool. So shout out to you guys. See you all tomorrow. Thanks to my friends and family for watching, and my girlfriend Brittany.
Grant Wesley, your runner-up finisher here tonight. A good way to start off the round of 8. Best of luck to you next week. 14 points sounds good, but it's super speedway racing. That could be lost in a matter of a lap. So best of luck. We look forward to seeing what you're able to do in next week's elimination race.
Hey, thanks.
And let's go down to victory lane. 3rd start on the season. And he picks up his first victory right here, plunk in the middle of the playoffs.
Very
Dante.
popular win.
Yes, indeed. Dante,
right.
Justin, Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I was trying to figure it out. We saw you kind of parked there in the infield next to the RTG logo. I was
Yes.
trying to figure out what was happening there. I think I figured it out. You don't want to go through post-race tech because that back bumper is twice the size it's supposed to be with the block you pulled off. So
That could be very true there.
that could be.
I'm going to give you that one, but I
Now-
just want to make it a signature move of Dante Ricky. Whenever he wins the race, moving forward, he's going to do his donuts and celebrate just like anybody else, but then he'll pull into the infield. Remember last year's All-Star race at BSR?
Yes,
That's
indeed.
exactly what I did. I went right to the infield for the BSR logo, and that'll be my signature move from now on.
Well, there you go. We got a Dante Ricky staple now from here on in when he takes a checkered flag. I mean, we heard just moments ago from Grant Wesley. He couldn't believe that you were able to pull off that block. It was one of the craziest blocks he's ever seen.
Goodness.
Were you amazed that you were able to pull off that block? Because a lot of different drivers up there in that lead group that were battling for different things. You're only making your 3rd start in the
Right.
season. Obviously, you want that checkered flags. Grant's trying to lock himself into the Final Four.
Oh, yeah.
Jeffries got eliminated from the playoffs last week, so he wants to try and get another checkered flag before season's end. I mean, how do you
Right.
balance all that into the block that was there on the back straightaway?
Well, I'll tell you, as little benefit as there was for me to win the race tonight, I wanted to win so badly. That's why I come out here, to come out and do my best to get that opportunity to win. The yellow flag was unfortunate. I wanted to race that one out. That was like the earliest lap possible for the race to finish. And it's unfortunate when races like this finish under yellow. For the reasons we've talked about before, it's difficult for the strategy. The accident itself was quite a scary situation. I want to apologize to JT. I know I wasn't involved there, but I yelled on the TeamSpeak, stay up there, and he's spinning out of control. I'm really sorry, JT. I didn't mean any ill will there. I just knew it was a difficult situation. But moving out of turn 2, we were in a very small group of 4 or 5 cars, and I knew that there was going to be some lifting behind me to avoid the wreck. each car in the back of that pack can lift a little more than I can because I'm pretty much wide open when we're getting around the 338. So we're strung out at turn 2 down the back with the caution flag out. So at this point, my first move is to move up the track. Because I know if I hold the middle, I'm too vulnerable. So I changed my lane once. I know the 88's going to make a move. I know Grant's going to make his move. But the problem is, I don't necessarily see what's behind him. I know Jeremy's there, but I can't see what kind of head of steam Jeremy has. I'm a little bit rusty right now, Seth. I'm a little bit rusty with my wheel, my mechanics, my driving, from not being in a whole bunch of these races. Let alone I did win a Monday night race a couple weeks ago at Daytona of all places, but that was a much different situation where the race leader got the penalty after the race and it was awarded and all that. But beside the point, going down the back straightaway, this is I hate the block like this. This is not what a block should look like. I literally swipe the wheel left, right once. Then once I see Grant make the second move, I swipe it left, right a second time. Grant's one heck of a racer, and there's really no benefit to him finishing second. It's a win or move on type situation, and I completely understand, how the stakes are with this Talladega Challenge Series, and race wins mean more than anything, and for me not being in the chase, it could be frustrating for everybody. But that's the way it goes. It's an aggressive race. I'm trying my best to compete, and I'll tell you what, Grant, Jeremy, Bob Seminara, Donnie, Joe, Josh, Chuck, Tim, people I haven't named. It's just amazing competition here. And some of the best in the community, if not the best in the community for super speedway racing. And Grant's always been really respectful, and I hope that I can continue to race clean moving forward, and my blocks will look a little more coordinated in the future in that one, because that was quite aggressive by me. But just like we talked about, I chatted with a few people, and the bottom line is I wouldn't have won the race if I didn't do it.
You get what I keep telling you, Dante. And by the way, great congratulations with the great win.
Thank you. Thanks,
But
Jessica.
Seth, I keep telling Dante, and I think I've told you this as well. There's absolutely no point in asking any questions when Dante comes into an area, because he actually answers everything you have to say, right? And he summarizes it like, if there's a table around here, let me flip the table.
Come up with
Just walk
another.
away. But Dante, great win,
Thank
and it's great seeing you back. But I mean, I do have a little question for you, because I've been doing it off and on for the past couple months as well. You've ran 3 races so far on the Talladega Challenge. You said you ran Monday recently as well. You got a win at Daytona through a post race and whatnot. And how does it feel running part-time, and your thought process going into these races versus running full-time with your mindset on a championship constantly every week?
Well, I'll tell you, I get a lot more people that say they want to work with me, and I also get a lot more people that will say they will not work with me in these situations. And that's part of it. They're all my best friends, and anytime you can get an ally on the racetrack to help you out, that's a good thing. And I want to do my best to, I don't want to impact the outcome of the race this season, but I also want to compete for the win. And it's a balance when you're effectively teamless for a season in a part-time situation. We give it 100%. This is a league where team alliances exist, but they don't dominate our everyday moves. So it's good to have some friends to work together with, and it helps get through some situations. Not to feel like we're shuffling anybody out of a pack, because there were times 3 weeks ago that I got shuffled out of a pack, and I had nobody behind me. Like, I can't do this anymore. I'm getting frustrated. But hey, you just use that motivation to come out the next week, try something different, get on the other side of that strategy, maybe pit a lap later on the second pit stop and get a can of fuel at the end of the race instead of 1.5 like everybody else. And ultimately, that's the strategy cycle that won the race, because that yellow didn't come out until the very end. Those yellow flags, they're part of the race strategy, and you just don't always expect that yellow to come out late like that, and that just makes it very difficult to make the moves and also to block them.
All right, Dante, just an off the side note, outside of racing real quick. Seth and I, we were talking about it with you and your weather and whatnot, and enjoying yourself and with your job and doing what you really love and enjoy, outside of racing as well. We got, what was it, Seth? You got the YouTube part, but Seth, what was the other part we were looking for Dante?
The weather station itself. I couldn't seem to find
Oh,
that.
yes. I am in Charleston, West Virginia, and I work for a Sinclair station, WCHS TV. I think we're ranked 79 in the DMA ranking, and it's WCHSTV.com. And there's a live weather. We'll also pull up the most recent forecast. If you want to see, I have my own YouTube channel where I'll clip some of my content. I won't clip everything, but it's there for you, Dante Ricky WX, and also my Facebook and Twitter, which are by the same name, and the meteorologist Dante Ricky page. But it's WCHS TV out of Charleston, West Virginia.
All right. Yep, we were able to find the YouTube channel and shout that out, but glad you were able to give us the other details as far as the channels so people can tune in and kind of get a behind the scenes of what you're doing when you're not behind the sim.
He's eating.
Absolutely.
He's constantly eating and drinking root beer. That's what he's doing.
You'll see me do some Facebook Lives also on the main news station's Facebook page. So you could like our station and also my own page as well. So
There you go. Well, Dante.
Wait, one more thing, Dante. I have to ask because I wasn't part of the original practice and all down there. Please tell me you were eating something before you raced.
I had half of my favorite deli sandwich before the race, which happens to be from the M&M Market in Canal City, right down the road. Amazing deli. I mean, the people there are great. These sandwiches, you cannot eat them in one sitting. You have to cut them in half and eat them. Honey turkey, I'm going to say like 2 pounds of it. Cut it in half, lettuce, tomato, mayo, and what kind of bread did I get tonight? I think it was sourdough bread. And I still got the other half in the fridge to finish up as soon as we're done.
This is what the race fans don't see behind the broadcast.
Exactly.
I mean, we've got the pre-race Dante staple, and now we have the post-race Dante staple.
If you're ever around Dante at any point during a practice, this is basically like a ritual. This is like a ritual thing that Dante has. He comes in, he's always got something to eat, or he's always thinking about food, and basically this is like something that's religious to him every single week. So we had to bring that up. It had to be mentioned.
Join the club, people. Thanks, Jessica. Very, very exciting. And hey, always got to get your sandwich and your food before the race. Plus either a Coca-Cola or a root beer, mug root beer to go.
Well, Dante, obviously, as Jess said, very popular win here tonight for you. Third start in the season. The other two finishes outside the top 20. You get that checkered flag here, right plunk in the middle of the playoffs. Before we let you go, the floor is yours for Victory Lane. Thank you, sponsors and shout-outs.
Well, first of all, I want to really thank Grant Wesley and Jeremy Jeffries for being such great competitors in the end of the race. It was not clean of me to do what I did, but I had to do it. Big thank you to all the drivers here who support me, and everybody who I've worked with over the years, our owners, David Cannon, Sean Prime, and all the high-level RTG staff and all the folks that have worked with me over the past few years. It's such a great group of people here for every series, every night. And although I can't race as often, it is a real treat to come out here and do it. And also a big thank you to all of my coworkers and my friends from soccer, which I still connect with. And I'm still doing some soccer games nowadays, but just not as many as I used to since it's the springtime. But really good to see all the soccer referees in New Jersey and in West Virginia and all the surrounding states that I've worked with and continue to enjoy the game with from time to time at an event here and there. Big thanks to my family, my brother, sister. My little sister got married in February, which is really exciting. I got to go out to Oklahoma to see them. So congratulations, Courtney and DJ. And hope all is well right now. And my mom and dad and everyone that's been enjoying and watching. I think the producer is telling us it's time to wrap up.
Well, it's a 1-2 finish for Toyotas here tonight. Dante Ricky picking up the victory here. Congratulations once again. Go and enjoy it, and hopefully we see you a couple more times here down this home stretch before the season ends.
Thanks, Seth. Thanks, Jessica. And I got one more little thing. I want to say hello to Robbie Nisus. I know he's in the hospital, and I just hope you're doing well, man. I'm thinking about you.
Dante Ricky, your winner here tonight at Talladega. Congratulations once again. Go and enjoy that victory.
Thanks.
And yep, that's news to me. So we want to pass along our well wishes to Robbie Nisus as well. Always hate to see it when any of the RTG drivers have something that's going on that doesn't allow them to be able to get onto the racetrack in some way, shape, or form. So sending our well wishes to Robbie Nisus here as well. I mean, we might as well save it all for next week's pre-race because we could go on for about 15-20 minutes with the storylines we're going to be prepping up for next week with how close the points are together. Nobody is locked in. We got one driver in a must-win situation. I mean, basically all I could say is if people don't tune in next week, to the elimination race, they're going to be missing out on something big, because this is a type of battle between about 7 drivers that can go any which way. Any driver above the cut line could be below the cut line, vice versa, within 5-10 laps of next week's event.
And I do want to point out what you just mentioned, storylines. Yeah, okay, so you got the points being really close to make it into the elimination race to pass on to the championship round, right?
Right.
Okay, we know that is there, but you also got to look at this other big format over here, and I'm not talking about the brackets. I'm talking about, hey, non-playoff drivers becoming either rivals or allies, help or don't. Then you get your own friends that are actually in the playoffs, and I'm not saying anything negative with, for example, Spirit of Seminara. What if something happens one way or another and you don't go with me? Oh, guess what? I'm not really happy with you because you should have done this, but you didn't. You get what I mean? I'm not saying they're going to do that. I'm just making that in as an example. Or it could be you and me, for example. So one way or the other. I'm just
we've seen the alliances showing
yeah,
Metallic.
and then it's like the friendship is always going to be there, but the alliances, the rivalries, new ones, bad ones start to form. So stuff happens inside the race. All this other mess happens, and then when you get knocked out because of said driver pulling a block on you or pushing you out of the way or racing you too aggressively, whether it's a playoff driver or a non-playoff driver, where does your mind go after that? Going to the championship round, you understand? It's like there's going to be a lot of scenarios happening. I don't expect this to be drama or anything, but the way they will race will change after next week.
I got a quick question for you. For our playoff drivers going into next week's elimination race, do you maybe kind of treat it as if you are in the championship for 3 weeks from now and try and maybe figure out something that you can then apply with the championship on the line? Or do you just wait until 3 weeks from now to even worry about all that?
Okay, so at this point in time, if you would have asked me this several races before the playoffs, I would say just try things in case you were in the playoff or in elimination or even a championship situation. That way you can gather the information at that point. Now, if you were like a lot of points ahead, and if you're like, for example, Grant's on top of the point lead right now in the point standings. If he was, sitting pretty 20, 30 points ahead of second place, yeah, maybe he could try something different to think about how he would approach the championship race, right? And try, well, maybe I should pit now and see what happens. Yeah, he would take a hit, but chances are he would still, survive and go through the next round. Based on where he would finish, he'd probably finish in top 10 if he was leading the race or whatnot and try something different. He'd probably finish top 12. And basically pass the next round, not a problem. But the points are too tight. The points are too close. You cannot risk being distracted and acting like it's the actual championship race. You need to take every race as it comes in the race itself. Because if you start thinking, oh, this championship race, and you're focused on that, you're going to lose sight of everything around you, and your mind's not going to be focused on the moment. It's going to be focused several weeks on what you want to do several weeks from now. And with your thinking at that point, you can get knocked out of the playoffs right then and there.
A good call. We saw last week in the elimination race, the first one of the season in the playoffs, some really good drivers, really good trucks get knocked out of advancing here into this round of 8. Next week is going to be no different. You're going to want to tune in next Thursday night. It is playoff race number 4, elimination race number 2. We determine the final 4 next week in what's going to be a 2-race, not just one season finale, a 2-race final round for the final 4. Who's advancing, whose season is going to come to an oh so close but early end. next week, next Thursday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, green flag will fly at Burnt Screwdrivers Raceway. We've talked all about the different words when it comes to super speedway racing: luck, skill. I think next week, execution is going to be a huge word that we'll be saying a lot in that event. Just a crazy one here tonight, setting the table for what's going to be an incredible elimination race next week. I appreciate you in the booth here tonight. Cannot wait for next week.
Well, neither can I. I mean, if the excitement continues as it has, next week is going to be really, really crazy. It's going to be hectic. I mean, they may not wreck. They may wreck. They might get really aggressive. But one thing's for sure, nothing's going to stay the same lap after lap after lap. Something's going to change every lap one way or another, and that's what I'm expecting. And I think that's what you're expecting moving forward as well. So the excitement's going to be there. And, with all this excitement going, I think, the higher up broadcasts and TV and stuff, they get Emmys, right? I think we need to put in our name for Shelly.
Shelly.
Yeah, we need to get a Shelly.
Well, in terms of super speedway racing as well, we know that nothing is predictable. So be sure to tune in next week when we bring you coverage of the fourth playoff race of season 58 of the Rolling Thunder Gaming Talladega Challenge. We appreciate you all tuning in tonight for this, the first race of the round of 8. For Jessica Shelton, I'm Seth Cole. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday night, folks. You've been watching another broadcast courtesy of FRN, the Flatout Racing Network.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of Flatout Racing Network and may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Flatout Racing Network and iRacing.com Motorsports Simulations. Flatout Racing Network would like to thank you for your support, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's broadcast.